worth, I believe.
And we're talking with Jon Heyman from the winter meetings. John, before we get to the Yankees and Lee, let's stop at the Mets for a second. I guess Alderson still thinks he's working for Bud Selig as he took so many snipes at the Worth deal. But let me say one thing about Alderson here for a second. He didn't get a free pass here in this town. He's getting one right now. In the past years, we have slaughtered the Mets for not doing anything and just laying dormant. Because Alderson's here, it seems like no one is making the point that they have to do something here to create some excitement. If he takes last year's team with a hurt Santana into this year, Citi Field will be a ghost town. People are giving back their season tickets by the handfuls. Nobody I've talked to has renewed yet. They have not done a thing. How are they going to charge what are still astronomical prices for tickets, and they don't give their fans even a player?
Right. Well, I mean, they do have players on the team. David Wright and Jose Reyes are very good players, and Beltran.
But you can't. But they're a bad team, and you got to hurt Santana, and you're going to say, "Hey, we're going to still charge." You know, the Mets have $400 seats. You can't expect anybody in those seats when you have a bad team.
Right.
I mean, they're not doing anything right now. They're not doing anything to energize their fan base. Nothing.
Well, the Yankees have $1,200 seats, so
I understand that.
Surprised.
I understand that. But you know what? They're the Yankees. They are the Yankees. They're selling their seats, and they have plenty of $3 and $4 seats too. But the point is, the Mets won't have anybody in their seats. They had nobody in the seats last year. They're going to have fewer people in the seats this year, and he doesn't do anything. And he's basically saying to everybody, "I'm not doing anything." So that's going to be his point is, "I'm not doing anything this year." They're not going to be any good.
Well, you know, they lowered their ticket prices. That's how they try to get more
10% across the board. That's all it was 10%. I mean, you watch, there's going to be their attendance was down about 750,000 last year. It's going to be down a lot more again this year. And he could do that, but he's going to be starting from zero with that fan base, the way things are going, because every Met fan has said, wait a second, every Met fan says, I understand Aldous is supposed to be a smart guy, but we're not doing anything this year. Now he goes to the winter meetings and all he does is snipe at other teams. What is he doing?
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with sniping at other teams. I don't think that's a good idea to be talking about somebody else's big contract. And you're right, that did sound like he was still working for Major League Baseball. And I didn't like the thing about that Worth deal makes some of our deals look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he went in there and attacked them. Yeah.
That sounded like a snipe at Omar, too, though.
Yes.
Makes our deals look pretty good. I don't think that was appropriate. Let's not forget, the Mets didn't have Beltran for most of the year last year. If Beltran is available this year for most of the year, and Reyes is available, they might be okay. I mean, I'm not saying they're a contender or anything like that. I still question their pitching. They may catch a flyer on Francis or Young or one of these guys. It seems like they think that Brandon Webb is too iffy with his shoulder concern, but there are guys on the market with talent who've done it before who might be okay, and some of these flyer moves might work. Look at Omar's best deals. They were all these flyer moves. You know, I mean, other than Pedro, and they needed to legitimize the franchise at that point. But, some of these bargain moves do work. It is funny to me that they've spent $5 million on the front office, and then they've allotted $5 million for the team total. Right. When they need a catcher, I think they need a second baseman. They need several guys in the bullpen. I mean, right now, what is their bullpen? You're hoping for Parnell, I think. I think Mejia's a reliever, so, maybe that will help.
Takahashi signed with the Angels.
And Feliciano is a goner. So.
He's talking to all the good teams, Feliciano. Takahashi signed with the Angels. Right. And they haven't added they added $5 million, as you said, worth of front office, and zero on the team this year. Zero. Well, you know what?
Zero.
The fans are not going to watch the front office work this year. I can tell you that right now. They're not going to go show up at Sandy's office to watch Sandy say snide things about the Nationals, okay?
Right.
Sandy wasn't hired to worry about Major League Baseball and where the salaries are going. He was hired to make the Mets better. So we're waiting. We're waiting for something.
Well, my personal opinion is that Moneyball is a much better book than it works in practice. That's my own aside.
Yeah, I have to agree, yes.
The word I heard from another team was that the Mets are scavengers. You never like to hear that word, scavengers. I mean, this is a big market team. You'd like to see them bump it up a little bit. They definitely need a starting pitcher or two.
And Johan's not going to be, from what I understand, not going to be ready.
Right, and I don't even want to hear what their estimates are, because we know they're,
They're lying.
They're not that good.
No, and right now, right now they're saying he might not pitch opening day, but behind the scenes you're hearing much worse estimates than that for Santana. You're hearing maybe some places half a season. Now, if he misses half the season, where is their starting pitching?
Well, they have Pelfrey, they have R.A. Dickey, they might have Young or Francis. Help me here. They have anyone else? Nice, right? Nice,
maybe the kid who came up G and pitched fairly well the end of the season. But that's not much to hang your hat on. That's for sure.
Well, let me play devil's advocate just a little bit, and I agree with you generally, but they did have young players come up last year. Ike Davis potentially could be a star, or at least a very good starting player.
I like Ike. I agree with you.
You got Tolley. You got, and now finally Pagan looks like he's developing into something. He's obviously going to have to play center field. They got to break this to Beltran at some point. He's not a younger player, but he's a developing player. And they have young players. Plus, you've got Reyes and Wright, who are stars. And if Reyes is healthy, he's a great player. If he's healthy, they should be okay offensively. Obviously without Santana, they're short on pitching.
You know what a Met fan asked me this morning? Are we now the worst team in the division? And I said no, because Nationals don't have their hotshot pitcher. He's going to miss all next year. So the Nationals haven't moved past the Mets. But you can make a case that the Marlins, the Braves, and the Phillies are all better teams than the Mets.
Well, the Marlins have always outperformed what everybody thinks they're going to do. So, and I don't mind the Uggla move. They turned that into Buck, Infante, Dunn. They did a lot of things. They still need a center fielder. They traded Cameron Maybin, and they have a big hole in center field. So, there are other teams with issues that we just don't think about much.
But the Braves and Phillies were playoff teams.
I would agree. At this point, you could make the case. But you're right. Without Strasburg, the Nationals are hurting, and now they're trying to come up with Carl Pavano. Carl Pavano, I think he was just not good in New York. I think he'll be good elsewhere. But, he's a middle of the rotation pitcher. But that would help the Nationals. At least they spent $126 million. They may have another 3 years, $36 million for a starting pitcher who won 17 games last year. I know everybody in New York's not going to be excited about Carl Pavano, but in this market right now, if you're not in the Cliff Lee market, he's your next option.
But I'm going to be cruel here for a minute. The Mets are going to offer us for the new season a new front office and a manager who's been a two-time loser. That's what you're going to offer the town this year? Well, that's not very good.
Well, two-time, you're not counting Japan, right?
I'm not counting Japan.
So I like to be precise.
But my point, three-time loser. My point is, here's the deal: they haven't given anybody anything. They gave the backup general manager, the assistant general manager, more money than they give anybody in the offseason.
Right. Well, they are trying to energize people with Sandy Alderson, who is a brilliant guy who won in Oakland. But I think you have to give him something. We got to have something more than the front office.
In New York,
if you have brilliant guys and no money to spend, what's the point? You might as well hire morons, right?
That's exactly. And they're going to sit here now and they're going to say, wait, we're going to let these contracts expire. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to sit here for a couple of years? There was nobody at Citi Field last year, the second half of the year. Nobody. I used to go to games, sit in my seats. There was nobody in my section. There is going to be nobody at the games, and that's their plan. I thought they would have to do something this year. They haven't done anything.
Yeah, I would have thought. I can understand why they're not in the Cliff Lee market, and they wouldn't get him anyway. But, I would have said Garland would be a good guy to go for. He's a solid guy, gives you 200 innings every year, helps the bullpen by doing that. He's not exciting, but he's fine for the National League. I'd say Hudson, energize that clubhouse. Gives him a little speed. Somebody the opposite of Castillo at second base, a guy who's always got a smile on his face and really keeps everybody up. This is a guy that for 2 years they've passed on this guy, and this will be the third year they pass on him because they're not going to spend their whole $5 million on a second baseman when you can, maybe Eckstein, because Eckstein signed for $750. Give him a little bit more. Give him $1 million or $1 million something, because he's another guy who could energize the place, and put him at second base, something like that. You can't come back with Castillo's scowl again. I mean, I have nothing against him. He's not a bad guy. The fans will not accept that.
No.
I mean,
and Oliver Perez cannot be on the team. He cannot be on the team.
I agree, but it sounds like they're thinking about maybe a bullpen role.
Oh,
or something.
Please! You cannot bring him north. If you do, you know what? That shows me their first mistake. If you don't realize after a couple of weeks that you can't bring Castillo and Perez back to this team, then you're not paying attention. I don't care who you are, you're not paying. And the thing that annoyed me was, last night, hey, what business is it of yours when the team spends? That's not your business. I mean, what are you worried about? I mean, are you working for Major League Baseball and the owners, or are you working for the Mets? What do you care what they spend?
Yeah, I didn't even think that was completely appropriate when he's working for Major League Baseball. But now that he's with another team and a competitor, you really shouldn't be making fun of anybody's deals. If a guy's a free agent who's been a very productive player, he's going to get overpaid. That's the way it is. We all knew that. I mean, this was still a little surprising, but I mean, I think Sandy needs to really concentrate on his own team. And I'm not saying he's not, but it was just not appropriate to say that at all. I would agree 100%.
All right, let's get to the Yankees and